"Hey, bro, I really think that we should quit this stuff," were the words that left Peter's mouth as Kevin offered him the pipe. "Come on, man, don't be a buzzkill. You know that you love doing this stuff," Kevin replied. "It's nice and all, but I don't think I want to do this anymore. Just look at us. We are grown men in our prime, and we just waste away the entire day sitting on your couch smoking this junk," replied Peter. "You do you, man. This is too nice a thing for me to leave," said Kevin. "Come on, man. We should both quit. Let us turn our lives around and make something of ourselves." These words fell on deaf ears as Kevin continued smoking from the pipe. "Don't preach to me, bro. If you don't like it, then you can leave. Just don't ruin my fun." Hearing these words, Peter was not only offended, but hurt. "Fine, continue destroying yourself. I will no longer be a part of this," shouted Peter as he got up and stormed out of the house. This conversation played again and again in Peter's mind over the next few days as he struggled to control his urge to return to drugs again. A day after this fight, the withdrawal symptoms had kicked in, and Peter found himself awake at night, scratching himself, as even in mid of summer, he felt cold. He had often found himself next to the toilet as he vomited over and over again, but this time he wasn't going to give up. He would not give in to temptation and would prove that he was the bigger man. Finally, he called a friend and asked him to take him to rehab. After spending a few weeks in the rehabilitation center, Peter felt like a new man. The horrors he had seen there made him even more determined to stay away from the drugs. He felt that his health was better and that he could think more clearly. It almost seemed like the clouds had lifted and his intellect could finally shine through. He had wasted more than 3 years of his life while on drugs, but no more. As soon as he got out of the rehab center, Peter enrolled himself back in college. Something that had seemed so trivial a few months ago was now more important than ever. Peter started socializing again and put all his efforts and attention into his studies. His efforts paid off, and he soon got an internship at a prestigious marketing firm. Life seemed good, but despite all his recent success, Peter could not help but think about his friend Kevin. It had been more than a year since the two had fought, and despite everything that had happened, Peter still cared about him. So, one day, he decided to call Kevin, but his phone appeared to be turned off. This worried Peter. Kevin's phone was never turned off, even after all of the drugs. Kevin wasn't one to stay off the internet, so Peter decided to make a house call. When he reached his old friend's home, he saw that the living room lights were on. Seeing this as a positive sign, Peter walked up to the front door and rang the bell. There was no answer, so Peter tried again and again, but no one came to the door. Now, Peter really started to worry as he believed that something terrible had happened. So he moved around and found an unlocked window. He opened the window and went in, calling out Kevin's name, but there was still no response. As he moved around in the house, Peter came upon a terrible sight. Kevin was lying on the sofa with a needle in his arm, but his eyes were pulled back and his body was stiff. The clothes that he was wearing looked like they hadn't been washed in days, and there seemed to be a stain all over them. Peter immediately rushed to his side and shook him, trying to wake him up, but there was no response. He immediately called 911, but it looked like it was too late. Kevin's body was as cold as ice, and when Peter felt his pulse, there wasn't any. Realizing that his childhood friend was no more, tears began to flow from his eyes. It looked like he had lost his friend to the very devil he himself had fought so hard to defeat. The only thing he felt at this time was regret. regret about not being able to save his friend.